bit of a break with I was taking trips, he was taking trips, but we are back. And we are talking about Star Wars Outlaws gameplay. I was pretty rough on it when they did the new 10 minutes from IGN. I basically was like, this looks bad. This looks worse. Looked like we were seeing some degraded quality. Got a lot of people that saw that video. It did well. A lot of people were agreeing, and then there were people that did not agree with me. But now there's leaked footage, and we're not going to show you the leaked footage, okay? But we're going to talk about the fact that it does look a little bit, it seemingly looks better. I'm going to end the previous stream about gaming news this week and Stalker and everything else and redirect people over. Thank you, everybody who supported that stream as well. So, Mike, I mean, first and foremost, how you been? You've not been on the show in a while, you know? How are you?
I'm good. I went on vacation, and then that thing that happened on Friday, Cloud Strike, the thing that knocked down computers across the entire world.
Yes.
I got abandoned in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then I had to rent a car and drive 27 and a half hours to get home. So, other than that, doing fantastic.
Great. Yeah. I saw footage of people like stranded in airports. I was like, this is terrible.
Oh, yeah.
It
was bad.
It was bad. So this game has been all over the place for me, because I felt like last year, you know, and you and I are big Star Wars fans, you know, we've grown up with Star Wars, and it's hard to be a Star Wars fan right now. You know, the franchise and the quality has just been kind of all over the place. Even with Jedi Survivor, you know, I had to wait almost 5 months before I could even play it.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't ready. And this game, I mean, it really did. It seemed like it was going to be the next big Star Wars game. You know, last year, Ubisoft, it was like, I argued it stole the show. And then this year, trailer started dropping, and she looked kind of different, kind of rough. I sent a tweet the other day. I was like, she never looks the same.
Yes.
It always looks like a different actor, always looks like a different person. I can't quite figure out what's going on. And then IGN drops the 10 minutes of footage that just looked rough. It almost looked old gen at times. Where are you with this game? What's your general thought about what this game is looking like?
All right, so last year when they first showed it, I was super excited about this game. I was like, this is the game I've been asking for. And this is before Starfield came out, right? So when I saw this, I was like, this is going to be my Starfield. I love Star Wars. I don't care about who the main character protagonist is. I was like, this is it. Open world Star Wars kind of reminds me of like Red Dead Redemption a little bit. You know what I mean? Like just open world, do what you want, be that scoundrel. And then they showed it at the start of this year, and I was like, okay, cool. They're showing some more stuff. And then when I went on vacation and came back and saw that 10-minute video of IGN, I was like, what is this? Like, are they showing like Xbox Series S footage? I don't know what they're showing. The explosions, her character model, like it was that, you remember the episode in Jerry Seinfeld, in the Seinfeld, where the woman underneath the certain lights looks completely different. And then
Yep.
I was just like, what? It's like, what is happening to this game? And then on Monday when I got back, we did a breakdown of the video. And I don't like to nitpick, right? I don't like to like break down videos and nitpick, but I'm like looking at it. There's parts of the video where the camera like zooms in and it kind of like shoves up against her, and it looks like it pushes her forward like she's on an ice skating rink from the camera point of view. She like walks through rocks, she's sliding down, clipping through the stuff. The explosion's like a 2D like JPEG. There's like the stalactites when she's walking through the Sarlacc pit type of stuff. I was like, what is happening with this game? I was like, why would they show this? And then I was like, maybe it's like low quality bit rate that they sent to IGN. I don't know what's going on, and I'm trying to figure it out. Like, why would you, like, first impressions were awesome last year, and then now we're 1 month away, and the stuff that they're showing, you're like, what's going on? Yeah. So I'm a little worried. But then there's people out there that have played the game at Summer Game Fest and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so polished and so good. And I'm like, are we looking at the same footage? Like, I feel like we have a Redfall thing happening again.
Right. Well, and I know some people were saying, hey, I played it and it looked great. This is console, and they played on PC. Excuse me. Thank you. And I think that might be what's going on, is like maybe they're taking like really souped up PCs and a vertical slice to these events, and people are playing a version that just looks and runs really, really well, because they're getting so much right. Like, there's so much fan service in here. Right. Just that, the protocol droid's head and the R2 units and the Jawas, they all look fantastic.
Yeah, the attention to detail looks great.
and she's jumping down into a Sarlacc pit, and I'm like, okay, you guys are definitely taking us to the Star Wars, fan service roulette, and I think that's okay. But then different things start happening, different effects, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I saw somebody theorizing that they made that announcement that Jedi Survivor was going to be coming to old gen, and we still don't have any updates on that. We have no idea what's going on there. But I had somebody saying, they're like, I think this thing's headed to old gen. They're going to do like a surprise announcement or a staggered announcement, and maybe that's what we're looking at, is we're looking at evidences of that. Like they're trying to figure out what they can turn off and what they can dumb down. Because this does not look like a next-gen game. Like you said with Seinfeld, I've always said that, like bad lighting on the porch. It's like, what happened? Like, why all of a sudden does the game look like this?
And it changes from like scene to scene when you see her, and then all of a sudden the next scene you're like, oh, she looks good, and then you're like, oh, what? No, she doesn't look good. And it's like so confusing. And I'm just wondering why. I've seen multiple footage now. The space stuff looks good, but at the same time, certain space scenes, if you look at the footage of I don't know what you have running on now. Oh, you have the 10-minute one. They have another one for the space travel one, right? And at times it gets super pixelated when they cut to the ground world stuff, and then when it goes to the space content, you're like, oh, it's like crystal clear. And I'm like, why? What's happening? And then I want this game to be good, by the way. I really truly want this game to be good, and I think it might be good. Like I don't want to take what IGN's showing and going, oh, that's it, right? I think when we get in, look at your screen when you start playing, you're like, wow, this is actually beautiful. I don't understand why they showed, and that's my concern. Why are they showing footage that's less than desirable to people that are just 1 month out? Like, does it matter anymore? Like, they're like, oh, we already got enough pre-orders and people are, or we already made the money. Like, this is the most money they're putting into promotion material for this, and advertisement wise and everything, and yet they're not putting their best foot forward. At least that's, in my opinion, that's not what it looks like. It doesn't look like they're putting their best foot forward to like push this game at the very end.
I was just going to say that. Like, I saw those headlines and those articles that like this is the most Ubisoft has ever spent to market a game. And I wonder if that market spend is forcing the developers to slice out pieces for gameplay like this, and it's just not ready. They're like, because I think that's one of the dilemmas right now, is that developers, personally, I think, just leave them alone. Don't start showing the game and getting into gameplay until you're within like a year of the game coming out. And what we could be looking at is a bunch of early build, unpolished slices that had to be made, because you've got Ubisoft saying, we got to market the heck out of this thing. We're going to need a bunch of stuff to show, because right now we got the thermal detonator explosion where she goes flying forward, and I broke it down frame by frame for people. I was like, it doesn't even seem to be put together well. Like, she doesn't move and the explosion moves. She's animated at like 30 frames and the explosion's at like 60. It's like, how does that even happen? And I think that's how it happens. I think that the marketing push has forced the devs to shove out way too much gameplay that's probably not very polished.
Well, even the water effects. And again, I'm not one of these people that when like Forza Motorsports came out, people were like, did you see the grass? And I'm like, no, I'm not looking at the grass when I'm going at 200 miles an hour in a car game. I'm like, not nitpicking like this. What I'm talking about in this is like the water ripples and stuff. It just looks, something looks off. And like you said, I don't know if they're being rushed to push this out the door. Not that it really matters, because it is a single player game, but they do have a season pass, and the season pass is a live service aspect of the game where they want you to pay that, because they're pushing you towards that $18 a month Ubisoft Plus thing. That's what they want you to get. So it's like, even if it comes out and it's downgraded in some way, shape, or form, over time it's going to get better, because obviously they want to support it for at least a year, or at least a couple seasons. And I just don't understand, like, that slide. I just looked at the slide. Like, why are they not showing the best of what this game is and not just subpar? Maybe to keep our expectations low, and then no matter what happens, it'll be better than what they're showing us. I don't know. What do you think? That's something that they're trying to lower expectations for the game, which makes no sense, because they want people to make the sales, or do they? Or do they just want people to go, you know what? That doesn't look like it's worth $70 or $110 or $130, but it does look like it's the $18, and they'll get Ubisoft Plus then.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this through the lens of what I just said a moment ago, like that combat sequence, as you noticed, like the slide and stuff, it doesn't play like a genuine encounter. It plays like they told somebody, okay, we want you to do all the things. Run over there, grab this, run over there. It's very scripted. And I think that that's okay. But it does really read like early footage to showcase basic combat. Like, it almost feels like we're not supposed to be looking at this. This is something that maybe was used internally, or, something to establish, this is what a mission would run and play and feel like. Because the R2 units and the Jawas and all the metal, it all looks so good, but then he just throws that tooth into a pile and it looks like it's not done. It's like it's not complete. It's low res textures. It
looks like last gen type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels extremely out of place, but that's what early builds typically look like. It's like certain things are not polished yet, and yet other things are. And then when I look at her character design, I feel like they have changed the direction of what she's supposed to look like multiple times. If you look at some of the earliest cinematics, her hair's like flat. She looks almost pale. She looks like a different character. She looks like a different woman. And people are like, oh, they're making her ugly. I'm like, I don't know if that's it. I don't know if she's ever looked like the same person. And that could be engine or art direction, or maybe kind of a combination of both.
Right. Yeah. And then the space combat, I think it looks okay, but in the footage they showed for the space combat, they put the marker, the reticle, on the point that's like 10 feet in front of the ship, and they're shooting at it, and it's not hitting, right? And I'm like, well, okay, maybe they're missing. I'm like stopping it frame by frame. I'm like, all right, a couple are hitting, but some are missing. I'm like, if you're on the target, then it should hit, right? But it's not hitting. So I'm like, what? Something's off. I don't know if they, like, again, early stages, early build, something's off, but I'm okay with the coming from the ground and taking off. That immersion keeps me grounded inside the immersion of being in Star Wars, unlike what Starfield did with going to the load screen, right? It's not as good as No Man's Sky, but it's not as bad as what Starfield did. That's cool. But there's just certain things that the gameplay, the Starfighter stuff feels a little bit too arcadey for me. One of the interviews, the guy said that he was a big fan of TIE Fighter back in the day, and I was like, that doesn't look like TIE Fighter stuff. That looks more like, arcadey. Even in Galactic Assault inside Battlefront 2, that looks like what that type of thing is. Even from Battlefront 1, where you would do the loop-to-loop when you're like evading someone, it did an automatic like U-turn. That was in there as well. And again, it looks good. I'm not going to say it doesn't look good, but it just looks off. Everything I've seen so far, even the 13 minutes of leaked footage that I looked at, which looked better because it wasn't scripted, you know what I mean? It's just a guy playing the game and like going around looking at things, and you get more of that world building. I think they've nailed this. Massive is really good at this, what they did with Division 2, where you walk in New York and DC and the pile of garbage, and they tell a story with inside the world building type of stuff. But in this, it's like it's detailed in the city. Obviously, it's empty out in the world, but I have a little concern of, like in Fallout 76 or any other wide open game, there's a lot to do within the going through, right? There's a lot of space. Red Dead Redemption, there's like an animal you can kill or shoot, or that you can like, scalpel and keep the pelts or whatever. There's a house that you can go look at. When you look at the footage that they even cut out because they don't want to show you the chase scene, there's nothing in Tatooine, right? So like, are you going to get off your bike and then go to nothing? Like, this is giant world, but 90% of it's nothing. That's a little concerning for me. Another bit that's concerning for me with this game is that the game, if you read the description of what the game is, it's a heist. It's like a Ocean's 11 type of story where you have to build a crew. And now obviously they haven't gone in depth yet with that because they don't want to tell too much to spoil a lot of stuff. But what they've shown so far is the same type of like fetch quest, like go do here, collect this, and they haven't shown anything different. They haven't shown like the mechanics of stuff. They've talked about how your ship gets upgraded as you do missions. You can upgrade the guns. Again, the gun that you use, you're just upgrading the one gun. It's not like you're getting a whole bunch of guns. It seems very simplistic, and I feel like the game's going to get boring unless they show us more stuff before next month, where we're 30 days away from this game launching. So I have a little concerns with that as well.
Yeah, I remember whenever they were showing the space combat, and I was kind of thinking through how a game like this would play and how it would feel, one of my thoughts was, man, that's an awful lot of things to make great. You know, I remember whenever we would be talking Destiny and people would be like, oh, they should do ship battles. And I'm like, why? I was like, they wouldn't be good. They would be mediocre. They would be half-baked. And I definitely worry that in a game like this, your combat, your loot table ideas, your sense of scope and world and how saturated it is with enemies and locations, and then your combat in space, it's all going to sort of feel limited by the fact that this is not a pure space combat game. This is not a pure shooter. It's not an RPG. It sort of is dabbling in each of those categories because you don't even have a skill tree in this, and you don't even get like XP. I actually like this part, that you go and do an expert mission, and then you learn that skill from that person because you did something for them.
Right.
So instead of like, oh, I have all this XP, I'm just going to like sort of slowly fill out a skill tree. It's like, no, it adds meaning and purpose to you going and doing these missions and meeting these people. It's like if you meet some random other scoundrel or bounty hunter or something. And so I like that. I like the perspective of that, but I do worry that this is going to be one of those games that tried to do way too much. And a good example would be Jedi Survivor, that I would say the platforming in that is its weakest part. It can be a little clunky and clumsy and frustrating, but then the combat I thought felt better in Survivor. I felt like they improved that. So it's like if you're gonna kind of throw in all these elements, they might end up feeling a bit half-baked and not super polished because you're trying to do too much.
Real quick, I want to answer a question. Youngard says it might be concerned about how Star Wars worlds are. It's shown in the shows and movies. Yeah, there's a difference, though, when you're watching it on the show and you're playing a game. When you're in Tatooine watching a show, they can cut the vastness of what Tatooine is and just tell you the important parts. When you're in a game, they're trying to keep you engaged in the actual game. So, for instance, this is the first, excuse me, besides Star Wars Galaxies back in the day or Old Republic, this is an open world game. So when you make an open world game, there has to be some kind of reason to go out into the open spaces, and putting one like cave out there to find something is not it, right? Like you have to have engagement in there, and they haven't shown that. So I'm a little worried about the vastness of stuff. Now the cities look fantastic. They look packed, and what they do, what Massive does with the cities like DC and Division 2 or New York. Another question real quick is, where's it? Oh, the weapons, right? It's only one gun. Yeah, it's Star Wars. There's lots of guns in Star Wars. I don't know if you know this, right? And if she can only use her one gun and not pick up other weapons and then level those guns up, that's a little disappointing. Okay. Again, I don't know if you can or not. They haven't mentioned it that I know of all the footage that I've seen that you can change. You can upgrade the pistol and stuff that you have with a stun or, more powerful and whatnot, but they haven't said anything about, oh yeah, there's like 12 guns in the game and you can like use whatever gun. Like Red Dead Redemption, not that I'm comparing a 1-to-1, but you could pick up a pistol, a shotgun, a rifle. You could use different things. We haven't seen much of that. And the third thing is, there's not hate here. This is just talking of criticism of what we've seen so far. I can't hate something I haven't played yet, right? So I don't really think I'm talking about hate. I'm just talking about concerns of what my eyeballs are seeing on the screen and what my ears are hearing from the developers.
Yeah, I've just kind of grown tired of toxic positivity. I don't have a whole lot of patience for people like that anymore. It's like, I was highly anticipating this game, praised this game, said that it stole the show last year. There's measurable graphical degradation. She doesn't look the same a lot of the times. There's awkwardness in the gameplay, and pointing that out is not hate. Like, I think you need to, I just don't have a lot of patience for these like oversensitive fans. Like, I don't even know if you're a fan, if you're going to defend a game no matter what. Number one, the game's not even out yet. So nobody is saying it's going to be bad. Nobody is saying that it's going to be terrible. I've even tried to come up with plausible theories today as to why this gameplay would look not as good as what we saw last year. Like, right. I'm trying to come up with a theory as to like what's going on. Maybe this is old footage. Maybe Ubisoft was like, hey, we want to spend a ton of money marketing this, and that puts too much pressure on the developers to then shove out gameplay that really has no business being seen by the public. Like, I'm trying to come up with a theory, because this does not look like what we saw last year, and I think that's a valid thing to complain about as a gamer. We've been here before. We've been here before with games that come out, blow everybody's mind, and then when the game finally releases, it looks nothing like the trailer. And this game doesn't even look like a game that's like, oh, it's going to be a crappy game. It's just like, it looks like it really lacks polish. It just looks very rough around the edges.
Look, I hope it comes out when you put it on your screen and you start playing, you're like, whoa, this looks completely different than what I saw on IGN. Fantastic. That's a win for us. I'm just concerned that what they're showing, just like Lono said, it's degraded. And I'm not talking degraded from like when they showed Division 1 at E3 years ago, and then when it came out is degraded, or when they showed Spider-Man came out was a little, right? Like it looks like it's on a completely different system. It looks like and it might be computer and it might be to console, but if that's what console looks like, I'm concerned, especially with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, right? I'm not even talking about the S. If these higher end current gen consoles look like that, I'm very much concerned about that game on console.
Well, and the other thing that I think I'm perfectly in my right to be concerned and to point out things that we're seeing is because we know that Disney wants a new Star Wars game every 6 months, and it is literally undeniable that Jedi Survivor released well before it should have. It felt like it was about a year too soon, and that's the concern, is that Disney has done the same thing with their television shows. They hired a bunch of garbage writers and directors to do Obi-Wan, and it was like, look at what you got, but then you get excellence in Andor. Well, why? Because Disney didn't care. All they wanted to do was just keep shoving out content, and they're treating the video games the exact same way. When you start saying, we got to hit this cadence of delivery, we've got to get these games out, it puts undue pressure on the developers to then push out a game before it's ready. So none of this is to be like, oh, we're hating on the game. Like I've shot down the argument numerous times, like, oh, they're making K-Vess ugly, the game's going woke. I don't care about any of that stuff. That's stupid. I'm so tired of that conversation. I don't even like engaging with those people. I genuinely think that we're looking at another game that is likely it's one of two things. It's either coming to market before it's ready, because this is another one that felt fast. I remember when they said the Survivor release date, I was like, that feels fast. This game feels like it's coming out really quickly. So it's either coming out too quickly, or they're being forced to push things out in their marketing that just, this is a bunch of rough early footage that just honestly should not be seen right now.
I think it's both. I think it's getting pushed out early, and I don't think they had enough time to cook it, because it is that live service thing, right? There is a season pass. They're adding stuff after down the line. So I do believe that if this game was worked on for 3 years and it needed 5, they're releasing it right now, and then they'll fix it over the next year or 2 years. And by the end, by the time it's done and the season pass is done, we get like a No Man's Sky where it's in phenomenal state, or we get a Cyberpunk, or we get the Battlefield 2042, right? We get it after 18 months, 24 months, and then the game is fantastic, right? But at launch, it's not done. And again, I don't know why it doesn't make sense in my head, but I know they're pushing people towards that $18. They want people to get into Ubisoft Plus. They want to get them that $18 a month type of thing, instead of paying the $70, $110, $130, whatever version you get. It just doesn't make sense to me. It won't make sense to me on why they would show degraded stuff. Like, you would never put out anything that was below your standard of what you want to make your content, right? Like, you have a standard of what your videos want to be and stuff like that. You wouldn't prematurely put a video out if you didn't like it. You know when you're done with that video, you know when you're done with that topic, you know when you're done. You wouldn't put a worse product out there for people to watch. You would do your best that you think is your best. And if they think that's their best, well, then they just need to go watch their video they showed last year compared, because it's not.
Yeah, I agree. And Jedi Survivor, people are kind of asking about it. It's still in a terrible state on PC. Terrible score on PC. They should be embarrassed, because this is the real frustration. Jedi Survivor is excellent Star Wars storytelling. It's really good characters, great setting. They did an amazing job with character arcs and surprises and pacing and writing and voice acting. And it's all wrapped up in a package that just, it didn't stay in the oven long enough. I mean, again, they should be embarrassed about the state of that game on PC. Now, they got it playable on console. They made performance mode not run like absolute garbage and playable on console. Great, awesome, good job. You did the bare minimum. You made your game not run like trash. And the interesting thing about Survivor is the director said they could have taken more time, and he argued or said that they didn't need it. And I wasn't sure if he said that to draw attention to the fact that the game came out and wasn't ready, because then he quit. As soon as it was playable on console, he quit and he went to Santa Monica.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you're the lead of the company and you're being, again, all speculation, and the company Disney is telling you, yeah, you got to put it out because this is what we need for the for this quarter or whatever, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, well, do you think it's ready? He's not going to be like, yeah, no, I don't think it's ready, because that's going to be like, that's death. That's a death sentence to the game sales, right? So you're like, yeah, no, we're very confident and we're ready to bring it out, and then it wasn't ready, right? And then you had to wait 5 months, and that again is first impressions are everything, man. First impressions are everything. And if someone looks at this footage and says, oh yeah, this looks great, I don't know what to tell you. Like, go look at the footage last year when they first showed it. It's night and day. It's night and day. And this is for someone that doesn't know anything. And I'm not a snob about frames per second or graphics, right? Graphics in video games are like low on the list. Like, gameplay is what's number one for me, then story, then sound design, then graphics, right? I don't care what the graphics look like, but something looks off about this, and it's worrying personally for me 1 month before the game comes out.
Well, and I think another thing to consider as well is that whenever you have a situation like that, where like the director said what he said, it was just interesting that he said we could have taken more time. Like, it was like, what? Like, why
we didn't want to? Yeah, we didn't want to.
Like,
we could have, but
we could have. You know, it was like, come on, man. Why would you draw attention to that? You know, especially when it launched. I don't think they were like in the dark. They weren't like surprised Pikachu face, like, oh, the game's running terribly on PC. We didn't know. Like, get out of here. I mean, to me, I keep coming back to Disney. You know, I got an axe to grind with Disney when it comes to Star Wars, and I think it's justifiable at some levels. It's like there's just been a lot of,
100%.
You know, I would say franchise malpractice has been a very, very consistent issue with how Disney has handled one of the biggest and most iconic film franchises in history, and their mismanagement of it, as well as Marvel. I think it's just easily seen. It's even seen in how they're changing strategy, ticket sales, you know, and canceling projects. They clearly went and sort of run things into the ground. And when it comes to the games, that's the other thought is, are they pushing studios to just absolutely shove out product, and we're going to lose good Star Wars games in the process? Like, we know there are other Star Wars games coming to market, and I really, really hope that the biggest other challenge too is I think Jedi Survivor sold really well. It's like there's no commercial indicator that they made a mistake. That's the only thing that they would respond to, is that if they were commercially sort of, I would say, punished, like they didn't get the money that they wanted to get.
Well, that's the problem with the gaming industry. A lot of people don't want to admit, but like, even if they come out with a subpar product, it's still good enough where people are like, I had fun, right? But what you paid for day one is not what you get 18 months after. 18 months down the line, you finally had Jedi Survivor that was working well, working, you know, good. And it's a fantastic game when you played it, and the story's it's a great story, better story than anything they've put on the screen on the Disney Plus for sure. But when this game comes out, my problem is day one, is it a complete game, or do we have to wait that 6 months, 8 months, 10 months? You know what I mean? And that's my problem with the industry. And Disney wants to push it out, like you said, 6 months. They put out that one on Nintendo Switch, and what is it, Hunters? I think it's the Hunters one. It's the hero shooter type of game that they have, right? That's the lower end one that they wanted for 6 months. And now they're coming out with the bigger game, which is Outlaws, for the second half of the year for 6 months. So they're pushing these things out. Hunters got delayed 3 times or whatever, and that people seem like they like it. I haven't played it myself, so I really don't know. And if this game comes out and it's just okay, but then gets better down the line, that's a problem. That's not good, because again, the sales numbers for Survivor were very well. Even Fallen Order was very well, but that's all they care about. The metric for them is, well, it sold well. We don't have to fix it because we already got the money. So why would they care to fix it? If you already paid it up front for an unfinished, broken, buggy game, then why would they give you a complete game when they can make the money off the broken, buggy, unfinished game?
Yeah, I'm actually curious when's the last time they even did a patch for Jedi Survivor on Steam, because I feel like currently out of 50,000 reviews, it has a 67%. I don't know if this will be on frame. Oh yeah, that's right on frame. There you guys go. You can see, like, this is an embarrassment for Star Wars. Like, Star Wars just should never be treated this way. It's disrespectful to the consumer. It's disrespectful to fans of the franchise. It's just an embarrassment. It should not be happening. And the fact that it seems like they've all but abandoned it. I'm not seeing evidence here of recent patches or updates, because that's the other problem, is that when they release something like that and it just no longer gets those updates. If I go here to let's see, Happy Star Wars Day, that was something they said. Okay, that's great. April, you could stand against the darkness with EA Play. So that was April 25th. January of this year, they had patch 8 details. They have abandoned Star Wars Jedi Survivor on PC. That's a joke. I think with a score like that, when a game like that gets abandoned, I think the refund policy should be loosened up, because that's just garbage. That should not happen.
Yeah, that's gaming for you nowadays. I mean, again, this has nothing to do with people go, "Oh, I'm having fun. I like the game." That's not it. We're talking about overall the quality of games that come out. You're paying full price, more than full price, mind you, because I guarantee you more people got the $110 version or the $130 version, so they can get the season pass plus the day one Job of the Hut mission that's not in there unless you get the $110 version, and just 3-day early access or whatever it is, right? That's the main driving factor now. The day and date's not the actual date anymore. It's 3 days, 5 days, early access, extra mission, and I guarantee you a lot of people bought that. And by the time they sell the 3 million copies, 4 million copies at the $110, $130 thing, they're like, yeah, we made our money back. We're happy. And then we'll just fix it afterwards. And it's trickery by the businesses, by the business model of what games are nowadays.
This is why I continue to say that if we were more protected as consumers, if we could refund a game as easily on the consoles as we can on Steam, I think that would be that would be the answer. Because if games like this would drop and were so visibly different and busted and not as good, you would say, hey, we want our money back. Another question I have here is in this scene, and this goes back to me thinking this is early footage. The R2 unit changes. That's not an orange R2 unit anymore. It's a completely different R2 unit. It's like we're dealing with different footage. It's almost like, why would the model change? I feel like this footage is just, there's just something off about it. But back to what I was saying, if we were more protected, if Xbox and PlayStation would let me say, hey, as long as I'm under 2 hours, I want my money back. This game's buggy, glitchy, and not running well. I think a lot of these companies would think twice about shoving a game out that's not ready. I really do. Right. It would be like buying a movie and having scenes missing, or certain scenes don't play properly. That would be a joke. You wouldn't let companies get away with that. The only reason, I mean it. People blame the consumer and they blame pre-orders. I think that's part of it, but I think the real culprit in the room is that the consumer is not protected. They would not get away 100%. With this if we were able to do refunds with the way that we are on Steam. And on Steam, I think it should be easier on Steam than it is, because you got to go through help and request it. It's not super straightforward. The average person might not even know they can do that on Steam.
Well, I think the easier option, because there is no consumer protection, is don't pre-order a game and don't play it day one. Do you know what I mean? Just wait 1 day, wait 1 week. There's so many games right now that your back I know, chat. Everyone here has back catalog, right? Everyone's got games they bought and put back, and they're like, oh, I'm going to play this later. I just don't have time, right? We all have the same amount of 24 hours in the day, okay? And I know people want to play the latest, greatest thing that comes out. Like right now, Marvel Rivals is a beta or an alpha, whatever it is, and people are foaming at the mouth to try to get a code so they can go play a game. Even though there's all these other games out there that they can play, they're foaming at the mouth to get that game right now because of what it is. And this culture won't change if the companies will still release games broke, buggy, unfinished, day one patch, week one patch. I'm listening. We hear what you're saying. We understand what you're saying. They fix the stuff. And that, in my mind, again, no proof of this, but in my mind, if a game comes out they're marketing themselves right now because we're talking about Star Wars Outlaws before it comes out because the way it looks, they gave lower graded video and we're talking about it and we're advertising it regardless if it's bad or good. It's in our minds, it's coming out of our mouths. Okay, so that gives them more advertisement to get out there, and then once the game comes out, then all of a sudden we're like, man, I don't know what those guys were talking about. This looks really good. And then there's a season pass, and they're like, oh, update's coming out in December. We got a new first mission coming out, the Jabba the Hutt, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden now there's more missions. So it stays in the marketing, algorithm longer because of what they're doing. Again, I can't prove that, but that's what it seems like they're doing because obviously negativity lasts longer than positively, because if it's good, you're like, man, that's a great game. All right, what's next? And you just kind of move on. You talk about it for like one day, maybe a couple days, how much fun you're having, how good the game is, and then it's gone, right? And then, but if it's negative, oh, did you see this? We're breaking it down. We're looking at this. IGN gave it a 7. Like there's all of these things that just keeps it fresh in the minds of people.
Well, I got another video here, Star Wars Outlaws official gameplay showcase from Ubisoft Forward. This was the stuff they showed this year. This is a month old on IGN, and this looks great. I don't have any red flags for this section of gameplay. She's walking through, it's seamless, the graphics, the lighting, all of it looks fine. I really do hope. I hope that we're right, and that the latest gameplay is old. And here's the thing, I don't think you're ever going to change consumer behavior with respect to pre-orders.
No.
Because we are such a minority. The average consumer sees a trailer for this, opens up their console and just bloop, hits the button, give it to me.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's why I think you need to be able to refund it. Because
I agree, there needs to be some sort of consumer protection. Absolutely.
Yeah, because if that's the simplistic way that most consumers engage with the product, then they also need to have a simplistic way to be protected. It's like you're given just a trailer and that convinces you to buy. And once the product's in your hands, if it's bad, if it's trash, if it's whatever, you should be able to press a button and be like, give me my money back. And listen, to be quite honest, Xbox, Microsoft and Sony, they're going to do everything they can to keep that from ever happening because they don't want that. That's a nightmare to have people like getting their money back on a game that's bad, like with what happened with Cyberpunk.
Isn't it weird that free-to-play games that come out, they're so polished, they're so good? Why? Because they have to, because you didn't put anything on it, and that's what. But when you pay $70 for a game now, and you look at it and go, why is this like this? Why do I have to wait for a day one patch? It's very odd that when a free-to-play game comes out, it's like flawless. And when a game full price comes out, you got to wait weeks or months for it to fix. It's weird, isn't it? Just weird.
I actually don't mind day one patches. I feel like I've seen a lot of commentators and even like press outlets railing against the day one patch. The day one patches don't alarm me because of what we know about development. But yeah, like you're saying, when it comes out and even the day one patch like doesn't really fix it, yes, I agree with you. That's getting tiring.
Well, if there's a day one patch, there's also a week one patch, and if there's a week one patch, you know what I'm saying? There's more patches behind the day one patch. It's not just about the day one patch. It's just that they're fixing it day one for most of the stuff, and then they constantly, slowly put in the rest of the stuff that they have to fix down the line instead of make a game, sell a game.
Yeah, and I think this comes down to a handful of contributing factors. I do think some of this is games are getting larger in scope and size and complexity, as well as, we want everything to look really, really pretty. And I think that you're seeing sort of the intersection of expectations and tech advancements, and that elongates the project. And what that does is that threatens the margins. You're going to make less money. If you guys work on this for another 8 months to another 10 months before we sell it, that we make less money on it, right? And so I think the pressure from the publisher is it leads to what you're talking about. Well, ship it now, and then in 8 or 10 months it'll be what it ought to be. And that's because when they do that, they make more money. It's like, well, yeah, we're going to make all that money up front, and then we're going to have a smaller team assigned to, quality or improvement. But the elongation of projects, I think, is one of the leading challenges in game development right now. It's why you're seeing the AA's and the indies start to rise in prominence because, like, look at Hello Games. Like, such small operating costs, and look at what they've been able to do with No Man's Sky.
Yeah, their engine. Did you see that? Did you see that video real fast? I'll swing into this. Where they showed how fast their engine works about going into the planet and then backing out and going to another planet. Like, they're wizards over there with whatever engine. What's their engine that they're using for No Man's Sky? Does anybody know in chat?
I believe it's proprietary because I thought they homebrewed.
I didn't know if there was a name. I didn't know if there was a name for it. That's what.
I mean, I thought they homebrewed all that, all the procedural gen and how all that works. I think is all theirs. It's like they came up with it.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast and smooth. Have you turned on No Man's Sky yet for the update?
I did. I was kind of disappointed. They've done this a handful of times where they do a big update and then they do the expedition at an unknown future date. I wanted to do the expedition because I thought it looked awesome. So I was blown away, though, when I went into outer space. I was like, oh my gosh. It just made me want to play it on PSVR 2 because when you play it on PSVR 2, it's mind-blowing once you go into outer space.
Yeah, it's like this game is this might as well be No Man's Sky 2. Like, this is not the same game that when it came out 7 years ago. It is awesome. But we'll talk about that after the after show.
Yeah. AOZ says, I think it's incorrect that $70 games are less polished. There are proofs of contradiction, which makes that statement invalid. I don't think they're more or less polished. I think that's where we're seeing some of the more egregious offenders because especially when it's something like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, they knew they could get away with that. They knew they could. They've got the draw, the popularity, the brand. And there are plenty of trash, small indie AA games that launch on Steam that are unpolished and crap. Like that's surely fair to say. But I do think that it's easier to get away with when you're some big name title and everybody kind of shuts their brain off in pre-orders.
Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit on that for the $70 thing. I think for Ubisoft specifically, Ubisoft wants you to get into Ubisoft Plus 1,000%. They would rather you get into the Ubisoft Plus than give them $70, but they know there's still people that will give them the $70 or give them the 110 or 130 for Shadows or for Outlaws, right? And if you want that, you want the physical copy, you want the digital copy, you want the bonus stuff, that's there for you. But what they really want to do is give you an unfinished product that they're going to update over time, and people that spend the $70 feel a little bit more burnt, right? But if you just give them $18, you're like, it's no big deal. There's plenty of games to play on Ubisoft Plus. I can go play any of the Assassin's. What is there? 15 Assassin's Creeds, right? There's Rainbow. Is it Rainbow Six? There's For Honor. There's a whole bunch of games that are on that platform for $18, and that's a really good deal. So if you paid $18 and Outlaws happens to be broke when it comes out, you're like, yeah, that's a little disappointing, but at least I didn't pay $110. At least I didn't pay $70. I'll just go play one of their other games. And that is the market. That's the conditioning that they're doing. Hence why all of these companies are putting their own plus subscription models, okay? Because they all want you. If you go to Ubisoft right now, go to Shadows, go to Outlaws, they tell you those brackets. And isn't it weird that the last bracket's in blue and colored and it looks like it's glowing? Because they want you to move. We read left to right. Okay, we're attracted to certain things. They want you to get the $18 a month for Ubisoft Plus.
Yeah, I do think that more and more, some of these companies want you to do that, but I think there's a delicate balance. I've talked about this a little bit with Xbox and how they have all these great big studios now, and Black Ops 6, I actually think is going to be very well reviewed, high quality Call of Duty, right? And that means it's going to sell well, and that means they're going to make a ton of money on PlayStation. So this is a similar situation where, yes, they probably want people signing up for the Ubisoft Plus subscription, but they also want a bunch of people buying this game because there's great margins when you buy the 110 or whatever. So that's where I feel like the tension lies, is it's like, okay, sure, you can make this game and maybe it's not quite ready and you get some people on Ubi Plus and they stay there because you're going to keep fixing it or whatever, but you also need people to buy the game at full price. Because you have to think the quantity of day one sales is usually very high on a title like this, especially with the name Star Wars. And everything we're seeing in this video, it's like I start to feel better again. I'm like, oh yes, this game's going to be amazing. It's stinking huge as a Star Wars game. Like I think this is going to feel. I thought Jedi Survivor felt pretty big. I think this game is going to feel significantly bigger.
I wanted this game to be the Red Dead Redemption for Star Wars. I said it last year when it came out. This was my most anticipated game, and I'm still excited to play it, but I just don't like the business model, and I don't like what I saw.
So what's your sort of plan right now? Are you going to wait? Are you day one? Or
No, I'm getting the $18 because I'm a content creator and because I want to show people what it is, right? I'm not going to give them the $70. I'm not going to give them the $110 or $130. I'm going to get the $18 because that's what they want me to do. And so I'm going to get that. I'm going to play it when it comes out. I don't know if it's day one. If you pay the $18, is it day one, like early access, 3-day early access, or is it day one when it launches? I'm not sure about that. But when it comes out, I will be playing it on my channel to show people, and then they can come in and ask questions as I'm playing it and be like, yeah, we were right, we were wrong, and that's the way I do content.
Elemental Hero says, the problem is many of the new games have lost the lore story immersion. The games of focus other than the politics. Yeah, I don't think that's happening. I think that's been so largely overstated. I don't see any agenda with Star Wars Outlaws. I feel like people are smelling, burnt toast everywhere. I really don't think that this game has gone down that pathway. I honestly feel like this is exactly what I expect from the next Star Wars game, right? We had a couple where you played as a Jedi and you were a guy, and now we're playing as a smuggler and you're a girl. Like, they're just trying to keep some variety. They're trying to kind of change things up. I've had people be more upset about the fact that it's a Star Wars game without Force or lightsabers, right? I've had that more. I've had more people say that. At least in the early stages, I remember that's what everybody focused on. When this, the first trailer dropped, people were like, I don't want to play a Star Wars game without lightsabers. And I'm like, what? I was like, there's so many fun things you could do. You wouldn't play a Mandalorian game? Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on.
Play Bounty Hunter, like back in the day. There's plenty of games that you didn't have lightsabers.
Yeah, and I think that starts to get old anyway. Like, you can only have so many games where you're throwing a lightsaber around. I mean, I thought Jedi Survivor did such an excellent job of creating depth within the lightsaber combat system so that it didn't start to just feel like a hack and slash. They gave it a bit of a Souls influence, so it had some punch and some meaning and some weight to it. So I very much think that this game can deliver and can be really enjoyable. I just really hope that we're not seeing signs of another game where they're being forced to push it out too early, or they tricked us. Like, they showed us a bunch of footage that's just been sort of baked up to, oh, well, if you have the top of the line PC, you can make it look like this. And it's like, that's a terrible way to market a game.
Look, right now, the best Star Wars game I'm playing is Starfield. I've modded my Starfield game into Star Wars.
That's awesome.
And when this game comes out, I want this to be a game that I can just like kind of lose myself in and explore and be that scoundrel and go play, the different games inside there and mess with the different factions. I want this game to be. I am a huge Star Wars fan, okay, but I have to call it like I see it. And when I look at this stuff, I'm a little concerned, but at the same time, like I said, I'm gonna play it for my channel, my chat, and make sure I give good information and good stuff when it comes out. So those people that are watch me before they buy it or not can go, hey, is this worth the purchase at the $70, or is this worth the $18 or whatnot?
Well, what do you think about it only being, a limited number of planets, but the planets being fairly large and open world? I've had people say like, oh, it's going to be another, bland open world game. We're going to be doing all these things. Like, I think they've even tried to speak to that. It's not going to have a lot of those like climb the tower, Ubisoft open world stuff.
Right.
And I also think they're giving us a bit of an indication that they're trying to avoid some of those trappings that they've fallen into with previous games where there is no XP, there is no skill tree, and that could be, as we said a little bit ago, like you said with the guns and stuff, it could feel very too simplistic, too shallow. But it could also really serve the game's good, because I wonder if sometimes we need a game more in the middle that isn't vast open world, huge skill tree, thousands of pieces of loot to find, and like in Assassin's Creed, right? I was always changing my gear and getting new stuff. This looks very much to not do that. Are there elements about that you think, okay, no, I like that they're doing that? Where are you on the gameplay structure of not having a lot of that stuff from previous Ubisoft games?
I like that they're going the open world, and I hope because there's not a morale system, it's a faction system, right, where you do certain things with certain factions, and I hope it stays like if I do something against the Jabba the Hutt faction, the Hutt faction, that even if I start doing good with them, they still kind of remember what I did. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's just like an on and off switch, like you betrayed them and then they're mad at you and they for that little moment, but then when you go there, it's like nothing's wrong, then that's kind of weak to me. But if it's an actual system where you screw them over, you do something with them, that it maybe kind of you have to build it up, sort of like in Fallout 76 does this with the factions, with the raiders and stuff. Like it's a constant meter that moves up and down, and when you are good with one faction, it opens up these other missions. It opens up like these things that you can purchase from them or get. If that's what it is, awesome. If it's very simplistic, where like it's an on and off, like you did something bad, they hate you, and then all of a sudden they're okay with you again, that's going to feel a little weak to me. Because again, I don't know what it is, but because they tell me it's an open world Star Wars game and I can live inside these worlds, and these 5 worlds are really like Massive does a really good job at just making the worlds feel alive. I'm really excited about that as a Star Wars fan, and how I already know the world building of these worlds and planets that they're on, and I want to live in that. I want to be inside that world, and if they make it more RPG like in those certain aspects, then that would be a win for me. If it's very simplistic, then obviously I'll enjoy it, but it's not going to be that thing that like hooks onto me where I want to keep playing it. Like I played like 1,000 hours of Red Dead Redemption just because of the places that you can go and the NPCs you can interact and the different missions you can find and the different things you can do. And that's a single player game, not even talking about the online aspect of it. I put 1,000 hours into that, and not to say that I'm going to give a grade lower because I don't get that much time into it, but there's a certain standard when you play like a Mass Effect or you play like a Division and you start playing like Red Dead Redemption, where these games in the past did these things, and then the games in the future that don't kind of hit that mark, and it kind of disappoints me.
Yeah, I'm a little more on the vein of I'm gonna have to approach this game more like an adventure game and less like
an Uncharted.
Yeah, exactly. More like an Uncharted, where I'm not going to feel that sense of like you might with like an Assassin's Creed or something, where you're like having your own build and your own stuff. And I think that that's fine. I want to go into a game like this and let it kind of be its own game on its own terms and not like demand things of it. But I do think, based on everything we've seen and heard, it is going to play a little bit more like an adventure game. Yeah. And that means the action sequences and the combat is going to be somewhat repetitive and somewhat simplistic. But I think that's okay. Like, again, as long as it delivers a great story and a great vibe. Like, I feel like the vibe of the game, it feels like Star Wars. Like, it has a good look and feel, which I think is super important. I remember when I first played Fallen Order, around that time, I was also watching The Mandalorian, and I was like, and I remember saying, I'm not saying this anymore, but I was saying back then, man, it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. They're kind of nailing the feel and the vibe of the universe. And I feel like this game's doing that, and I hope that that's what shines through. Like, I don't want to turn around and have this be another game that, sort of falls flat on its face, and everyone's like, yeah, what a joke, because I know Ubisoft, they need a win. They've been doing better, but they certainly haven't been doing great, and they've gotten a lot of heat and hate for the Assassin's Creed Shadows situation. So like between this and
I haven't heard anything about that.
They I mean, they could use a win. They could use this game and AC Shadows to come out and get good scores. I don't think they're going to get any award nominations or anything like that. But come out, get some good scores and have a general acceptance in the gaming community. I would like to see that. Not just as a Star Wars fan, but like I feel like some of the teams at Ubisoft, I feel like they do good work, and I feel like they fell prey over the years to pushing things out before they were ready.
When they first showed this game, and then what's the lead's name? Julian, I forget his last name, or maybe that is his last name. I don't know his first name. But when he was talking about the game, I was like, man, they hit the feel, because it takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Like, they nailed the feeling of the 70s, early 80s. Like, I know the movie doesn't take place in the 70s and 80s, but because Star Wars was filmed in the 70s and 80s, they made this game in that time frame, in that timeline, and they did I think a bang-up job when they first showed her character model and the way it was. I was like, man, they even have that grain on on the actual game to make it feel like it's that Star Wars back then. The text, the titles, all that stuff has got that Star Wars text. I was like, they did such a good job. And I was like, this is the passion. And this is why I was so excited about the game. And again, here we are just a month out. And I'm like, I'm not as excited now as I was last year when they showed it for the first time.
Right, because I remember reading the interview where they said they tried to emulate camera lenses from that era. And I think that's why some of the lens flare looks weird. Like she goes into certain rooms and stuff, and these big fat bands of light are like coming off of the doors. I think maybe they might have gone a little too far with it. They might need to tone that down in some places, because at times it looks great in some of the cutscenes. I'm like, okay, I would watch this if this was like a Star Wars TV show or something. But then there's other times, like in the open world and things, when she's coming in and out of dark areas, where the lens flare looks like, okay, yeah, maybe that's what that would have looked like back then, but it doesn't look good. Like, you know, so right. I think maybe they went a little too far. But I agree with you. I remember reading that and thinking, oh man, there's a lot of passion behind this project. They really want it to look and feel like Star Wars. And I think that's always been super important to me, because I've obviously grown up with the originals, and it made me very critical of the prequels. I don't like the green screen. People are like, well, it was an era of peace. I don't care. It didn't have the feel. It didn't feel like Star Wars. And I that's super important to me. And if they can nail that, and it gives me good gameplay experience, I think I'll be happy. I don't want it to perform like garbage, and I certainly don't want it to have a bunch of problems or issues where it's just blatantly obvious it wasn't ready.
Well, that's another thing. If gameplay is solid, then I can forgive a lot of the little hiccups that they've shown in the thing, if gameplay is solid.
Right. Yeah, like if it's just enjoyable to play, gameplay, to me, it's the gameplay and the performance, because after what happened with Jedi Survivor, like I don't want to boot up another game and have to like eat around that fat, where it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't run very well. You just kind of have to suck it up. It's like, I'm so over that. I'm over games not performing well, games shipping without 60 FPS. I have grown to just not at all want to even tolerate that. Like if they came out and said, oh yeah, this game's gonna be 30 FPS on console, like I would just skip it. I'm like, okay, well that's a deal breaker for me. How
fast do you think the modding community will change the PC version to Han Solo and Chewbacca?
I mean, that's a guarantee. You know, I had some guys the other day saying, they're like, why can't I customize my character? And I'm like, did you say that about Jedi Survivor? Did you say that about Jedi Fallen Order? It's like, in the 10 years that I've covered gaming, when any time someone says, why can't I just customize my own character, 9 out of 10 times the lead character's a girl. And it's like, that's never bothered me or affected my immersion. And I don't want to say somebody's being hateful. I think people overstate that when they're like, you know, I give people like that a little bit of guff. I'm like, who cares? You know, just play as a girl. But I also think that I don't think they're always being hateful. I just think it's a preference. That preference doesn't bother me nearly as much as like they want every female character to be a supermodel. Like I think that's more bothersome. It's like she should look the way that she looks. She's a scoundrel, you know. She's part of the underbelly of Star Wars. She shouldn't look like, you know, like a supermodel. That would be weird.
Say that to Daisy Ridley.
Hey. I mean, you know, that I honestly think that was slightly immersion breaking in that first movie. Like she was pretty. It was like she'd be all busted up, you know. She wouldn't, you know, you had this cute hairstyle, you know.
Like she just woke up out of bed. Yeah, she's just like, yeah. Just
I mean, I guess they kind of did that with Princess Leia, but Princess Leia was royalty.
She was a princess.
Yeah,
she was a princess.
Yeah, she was royalty. She's not like surviving on a desert planet, you know?
A little wear and tear on your face a little bit when you've been left alone in the desert.
That's what I mean. She should have had some scars and some, like, she should have been a little sun-kissed. Like, you know, her skin should look dry. Like, yeah, she's out here roughing up. She looked great. It was like, what's going on here? You know, between her and Poe, it's like we got some really good looking people in this movie. It's a little it's a little immersion breaking, you know.
Right.
Han was the heartthrob in the first movie. You know, Luke was a little homely looking, you know. No offense, Mark Hamill, but you know, he wasn't the eye candy of that movie.
No, because he lived on a desert planet.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
He was whiny and annoying, you know.
Power converters.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll obviously circle back when this one comes out. We'll give our thoughts. We'll give our impressions. You know, we'll definitely approach that from, you know, a Star Wars fan perspective. You know, if you guys are, you know, a high enough member tier, you've probably gotten to come to the green room on a Friday, which is something we do after this. And Mike and I we've gotten into it. We've talked about the Star Wars shows and stuff, and just how, you know, you get a little bit non-gaming conversation from us then, because man, like I said, it's kind of hard to be a Star Wars fan right now. It's like everything I look at, I'm always hesitant to care. It's like, oh no, you know. And I started to feel that with this game, and I really hope it proves me wrong.
Right, Altern, they had all those planets. They chose another desert planet. It's amazing.
Yeah, why are we? Yeah, I saw somebody say that. Like, you have all these planets. Why are we going back to Tatooine? Like, come on, man. I do think, though, that from what I've seen of the other planets, I really like the biome diversity. I think that might work in their favor. It might work in their favor. Like, start on Tatooine. Like, okay, Sarlacc, you know. Instead of a big white blur, it's a big dark blur. I see a big white blur, you know?
Do you think people will give the same energy level when they get on the bike and they just drive in a direct straight line to see if they hit the boundary? Do you think someone will do that, or do you think anyone won't care?
Yeah, it depends, because like if you know,
I'm just saying, if they did it for Starfield, I just want them to do the same thing with this game. Just drive in a straight line on a bike and see how fast you hit the end of the map.
Well, I do think the difference is we were told we could explore the entire planets on Starfield.
Yeah, I get it.
And I think on this one, I think they've done a good job of setting expectations. Like, I don't expect to drive from one end of Tatooine to the other. I don't think they've set that expectation. And oh my gosh, I don't think I would want to. I don't think that would be fun in a game like this.
I don't care. I play the game. I don't try to break the game. It just breaks automatically when I play.
I would like to get like a normal speeder, though. She's on like the speeder bike. I think it would be fun to have like the full two-seater, you know, like the speeder
like
that
Grand
Luke
Theft
has.
Auto style. You could just walk up to another vehicle and just hop on in it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, you know, let me try out one of those big boys and see how fun that is. You know, I like the speeder bike, but I think it'd be fun to ride in the classic speeder like Luke has. You know,
Season 4 of the DLC, you'll be able to get into different vehicles.
I mean, I agree with what Eugene is saying. If you want to have the underworld and you want to have the huts, you're going to end up on Tatooine. I think that's fair.
Sure.
I do.
I don't. I was talking about, when I said the desert planet, I was talking about Rey on I don't even know what the planet was called.
Jakku.
Like, Jakku, a new Star Wars film, but on another desert planet. It's like there's all these planets, and you picked another desert planet.
I really hope that the next movie they do with her is just all on Tatooine. Let's just stay there, you know, just move. She should just build a house inside of a Sarlacc, you know, just let's not have anything new, you know.
Yeah. Cost would be down because the sets would all be on one thing.
It's all already built. Yeah, you know, she moves into Jabba's palace. I'd just do that. You know, let's just reuse every set that's ever been used. Fan service, nostalgia injection. And
Boba Fett will be there. He would still be in the little machine that he's.
Yeah, I think that's a win, you know. And then after they do that, really set the stage to reset the story, and then let Rian Johnson come in and ruin it again.
Yeah. With a slow chase scene in the desert of Tatooine. Not Jabba, but one of Jabba's kids is like chasing him, slugging through the desert as they're slowly chasing him.
those hover around bikes. Like whenever I go to Kroger, they always have those for the people that can't walk or the elderly. It's like they can, you know, they just walk this real slow hover around 5 miles an hour, you know.
Yeah, Desert Wars. Yeah, they completely changed from Star Wars to Desert Wars. Sand Wars.
I mean, I'm not sure why we're not writing all this down. We're clearly saving Star Wars right now with these ideas. This is
patent pending copyright law.
This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Oh my gosh! Well, chat, Mike, what are you working on right now? What are you playing? What are you creating over there? So if they go to over there on your channel, what are they going to find?
Well, I've completely stopped uploads because I'm thinking about how I want to do my uploads again. But I do live shows Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning till noon Eastern. Chat is 100% part of the conversation. We do that. We do gameplay on the evenings, Monday through Thursday from 8 p.m. to about 11 o'clock. And then on Thursday nights, we do a podcast called Generation X Gaming. It's a weekly podcast that goes over a few of the top stories in the past week, and we rant along the way.
Well, guys, he's clickable in the description, and a lot of times he'll kind of chill with us for a little bit longer. You guys did hit the goal, so don't forget that tonight is for all members. We go live around 8 p.m. Eastern, and about an hour or so, hour and a half or so into the show tonight, we'll be playing Overcooked, and Creature has to show up, and it'll be hilarious. So don't miss that. That's for all members. Set your clock, set your watches, and make sure you got your alerts turned on. We're gonna switch gears here though and go to the green room. And the green room is a weekly segment where you get to kind of just sort of see behind the scenes and hang out and chill, but you do need to be at a member plus or higher. This is the one time of the week where you do need to be paying for your own membership. That's a great reason to upgrade. It's $1 more, supports me directly, and you get into more content. And don't forget to check out Mike's channel, 30NSG, especially if you're looking for something on Thursday evenings. He hangs out with his brother. Still on Thursdays, right? Thursday at 8?
Yeah, and then Wednesday nights we do a shooting the yes, I'll say, on Wednesday nights when we play a shooting game, and we also bullcrap with each other.
There you go. So 2 nights a week. 2 nights a week you can get those knuckleheads hanging out, talking, ranting. They're fun guys. You guys will like it. So I don't do evening content. I mean, I do on Friday. So you guys could really get a full scope of content. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you could be always having somewhere to hang out in the evenings. Do you do something on Friday nights?
Nope. No.
Okay.
I was thinking about it, but I don't really want to, but I was thinking about it.
Well, there you go, chat. You got the Mike and his brother on Wednesday and Thursday, and then you can hang out with me and my wife on Fridays, and sometimes Creature. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the green room. Thanks so much for being a member plus or higher. If you're paying for your own membership, man, that's a huge deal, and we really appreciate that. A weekly segment where we just kind of hang out. And it's a lot more chill, and some people are upgrading right now. Thank you, Kicking It with Timmy B and the Kronos, for doing that. It's a great support to the channel. We are trying to get to 1,000 people at Member Plus or higher, and if we do that, we'll celebrate with some IRL streams on the weekend. So consider upgrading. It's $1 more, and it supports me directly. I'm going to end the previous stream where we were talking about Star Wars Outlaws, and I'm going to bring people over. And let me change that thumbnail. I thought that was a